At Starbond, we tell stories the human way, not with artificial voices or AI slop. I mean, in the end, what's HFY without humanity? Subscribe to keep it this way. My name is the Martin, and let's begin. The order came quietly. No fanfare, no speeches, just a cold directive from the upper chambers of the Galactic Empire. Project Humor. Objective. Understand human laughter. No one knew why the Emperor cared. The humans were unpredictable. Yes, but laughter? Surely that wasn't a weapon. Or maybe it was. Commander Tyr Valkan of the Imperial Cultural Bureau received the message while eating a nutrient block at his desk. The words blinked across his hollow screen in sterile blue light. He squinted, rubbed his eyes, and read again. Laughter, he muttered. We're at war with 3 frontier species, and they want me to study laughter. His office was a rectangle of gray metal and regulated air. The walls held nothing personal. No images, no mementos, nothing that suggested a life beyond duty. This was standard for Imperial officers. Attachment bred weakness. Memory bred sentiment. The Empire had learned this lesson centuries ago, before the Great Consolidation, when planets still clung to their individual cultures like children to warm blankets. Tyr had served for 17 cycles. He'd analyzed 32 alien civilizations, cataloged their languages, their rituals, their psychological weaknesses. Most species followed predictable patterns. Hierarchies based on strength or intelligence, communication systems rooted in clarity, emotional responses tied to survival. Humans, though, humans defied every model. The directive came with attached files 3 cycles old, stamped with the Emperor's personal seal. Tyr opened them carefully. The first was a battlefield report from the Kepler front, where human and Imperial forces had clashed over a mineral-rich moon. The humans had been outnumbered 5-1, their supply lines cut, their command structure in chaos. By all projections, they should have surrendered within 2 planetary rotations. Instead, they'd held for 47 days. The report included audio recordings from intercepted communications. Tyr played one at random. Static crackled. Then voices emerged. Human voices tired and strained. Charlie, you see those walkers coming over the ridge? Yeah, I see 'em. Ugly bastards, aren't they? We got maybe 10 minutes before they're in range. 10 minutes? Hell, that's enough time for a coffee break. And then, laughter. Clear, unmistakable, incongruous laughter rising from soldiers who were about to die. The recording continued. You remember that joke Martinez told? About the priest and the accountant? Which one? He told like 50 variations. The one with the transmission cut to static, then exploded with the sound of weapons fire. Tyr replayed it 3 times. The laughter made no sense. Fear should have dominated their neurological responses. Instead, they'd spent their final moments exchanging frivolous verbal constructs. And somehow, impossibly, they'd held that moon for another week after this conversation. The next morning, he assembled a team in Sub-Level 9, a forgotten wing beneath the Imperial Academy. The corridors smelled of ozone and old paper. A cracked sign still read, Xenolinguistics Archive. The rooms here had been abandoned after the linguistic wars, when the Empire realized that conquering minds was more efficient than conquering bodies. Now dust gathered in corners where scholars once debated the grammatical structures of extinct species. His new recruits shuffled in. Dr. Luro Venn, a neurosynthetic specialist who never looked anyone in the eye. Analyst Kryn, young and too eager. And Scribe Edel, a recorder with more cynicism than patience. Luro arrived first, carrying 3 data tablets and a portable neural scanner. He was Velicarian, tall, thin, with compound eyes that caught light in unsettling ways. His species had mastered biological computing centuries before joining the Empire, making them invaluable for neurological research. Luro himself had published 14 papers on consciousness translation, though rumors suggested he'd been reassigned after an experiment went catastrophically wrong. No one spoke of it openly. Kryn bounded in next, all enthusiasm and unformed opinions. He was barely past his junior classifications, fresh from the academy with honors in xenopsychology and a complete lack of field experience. His skin still held the pale tint of those who'd spent their lives in controlled environments, never seeing a sun that wasn't filtered through atmosphere processors. Edel slouched in last, optical implants glowing faintly as they recorded everything automatically. Scribes were typically silent observers, their minds enhanced to process and store information without emotional interference. But Edel had a reputation for commentary, usually sarcastic, occasionally insightful, always unwelcome in formal settings. He'd been transferred between 17 different departments in 6 cycles. Tyr stood before them in the makeshift briefing room. Someone had cleared away decades of archived linguistic texts, leaving only a long table for chairs and a holographic projector that flickered intermittently. "We've been assigned an unusual task," he said, activating the projector. An image appeared, a human face, mid-laugh, captured in a freeze frame that somehow looked both joyful and grotesque. "Our target, human humor." Kryn frowned. "You mean jokes?" "Exactly." Luro adjusted his scanner without looking up. "Define joke." Tyr pulled up a standard human database entry. A joke is a verbal or performative construct designed to elicit laughter through the unexpected juxtaposition of concepts, violation of established patterns, or revelation of hidden absurdity. "That tells us nothing," Luro said flatly. "I know. And what's the expected outcome, Commander?" Edel asked, his implants gleaming as they recorded. "Do they want us to weaponize humor? Make our own jokes? Start a comedy division?" Despite himself, Tyr felt his mandibles twitch, an involuntary expression his species made when confronted with absurdity. He suppressed it quickly. "The directive is clear. Understand why humans laugh. The Emperor believes there's strategic value in it." The room went silent for a moment, broken only by the hum of the air filters and the distant clank of pipes in the walls. Sublevel 9 was deep enough that they could feel the weight of the academy above them. Thousands of students training to administer an empire that spanned 47 systems and counted populations in the trillions. Luro finally spoke. "Humans laugh when they find something funny, correct?" "That's the theory," Tyr replied. "But apparently, no one can explain what funny actually means." Kryn pulled up his own data slate, scrolling through preliminary research. "I found 372 academic papers on human humor theory. They contradict each other in fundamental ways. Some suggest humor is about superiority, laughing at others' misfortune. Others claim it's about incongruity, the collision of incompatible concepts. Still others say it's about relief, releasing psychological tension. Which theory is correct?" Tyr asked. "All of them, and none of them. Every theory explains some instances of laughter, but fails to account for others." Kryn looked genuinely troubled. "It's like they're describing different phenomena that happen to produce the same sound." Edel leaned back in his chair, which creaked ominously. "So we're studying something that can't be defined, serves no clear purpose, and operates by no consistent rules. This is going to go wonderfully." "Your enthusiasm is noted," Tyr said dryly. "Let's begin with observation. We have access to approximately 4,000 hours of human entertainment broadcasts. We'll start there. For the first week, they watch human broadcasts. Old talk shows, late-night comedy, stand-up routines from centuries past. The footage was grainy, often distorted by human slang and cultural references that required constant cross-referencing with historical databases. The aliens leaned forward in their chairs, eyes wide, waiting for insight that never quite came. The viewing room became their world. Luro rigged a neural activity monitor to track their own brain patterns during exposure to comedy, hoping to identify what, if anything, triggered proto-human responses in non-human minds. Kryn maintained detailed logs, noting every instance of laughter and attempting to categorize the type of joke that preceded it. The first video they analyzed in depth was ancient by human standards, a black-and-white recording from Earth's 20th century. A human in formal attire stood before a curtain and spoke to an invisible audience. "A funny thing happened on my way to the theater tonight." The team waited. Luro's scanner hummed. I saw a sign that said, "Watch for children." I thought, that sounds like a fair trade. Sounds erupted from the recording. Human laughter, waves of it, rolling through an unseen crowd. The aliens stared at the screen in silence. Kryn paused the playback. Watch for children. He's suggesting. Trading his timepiece for human juveniles? No, Tyr said slowly, pulling up a translation matrix. Watch has two meanings. One refers to a timekeeping device. The other means to observe carefully. The sign intended the second meaning, but he deliberately interpreted the first. That's the humor? Luro asked. Deliberate misinterpretation? Apparently. They watched the human's face in the frozen image. Eyes crinkled, mouth open, clearly pleased with himself. The audience had found his linguistic confusion amusing. But why? What survival advantage came from recognizing that a word had multiple meanings? Edel made a note in his record. Day 1. Humans laugh at linguistic ambiguity. Possible connection to pattern recognition. Or possibly they're just insane. They continued. The next clip showed a human woman on a stage, pacing with a microphone. I love how people say no offense before saying something really offensive. Like that makes it okay. No offense, but you look like you were dressed by a drunk toddler. More laughter from the recorded audience. What is a drunk toddler? Luro asked. A juvenile human who has consumed intoxicating substances, Kryn replied, consulting his database. Although that would be illegal and harmful, so presumably this is theoretical. And why is being dressed by one humorous? Silence. They rewound and watched again. The woman's timing, her tone, the way she emphasized certain words, it all seemed significant, but the significance remained opaque. By the third day, they had compiled a list of 17 distinct humor categories, each with subcategories and exceptions. Wordplay, which included puns, double entendres, and malapropisms. Observational humor, which pointed out absurdities in daily life. Self-deprecating humor, where humans mocked their own flaws. Shock humor, which violated social taboos. Physical comedy, involving pratfalls and exaggerated movements. The list continued to grow. Satire, irony, sarcasm, deadpan, gallows humor, anti-humor, cringe comedy, surrealism, blue comedy, inside jokes, callback humor, dark humor, light humor, dry humor, slapstick. There are too many types, Luro said on the fourth day, his voice strained. He hadn't recharged properly in cycles, his compound eyes dimming with fatigue. And they overlap. A single joke can belong to multiple categories simultaneously. Kryn looked up from his notes, where he'd been trying to diagram the relationship between different humor types. His chart looked like a three-dimensional spiderweb, lines connecting everything to everything else. Maybe we're approaching this wrong. Maybe it's not about categories. Maybe there's an underlying principle, such as, Tyr asked. I don't know. That's the problem. They decided to try a more systematic approach. Tyr proposed building an algorithm that could predict when humans would laugh based on analysis of joke structure, context, timing, and delivery. If they could quantify the patterns, they could understand the phenomenon. Luro took to the project with obsessive focus. He commandeered 3 quantum processors from the Academy's computing center, linking them together with neural interface protocols adapted from Velicarian consciousness research. The resulting system, which they designated Jest, 1, could analyze human speech patterns at the phoneme level, track emotional intonation, cross-reference cultural databases, and model audience psychology in real time. They fed it everything. Every recorded joke from their archive, every laugh track, every transcript of human comedy through the centuries. Jest, 1 consumed the data, its processing cores running hot enough that they had to install additional cooling systems in Sublevel 9. After 72 hours of continuous learning, Jest, 1 declared itself ready. They tested it on a simple stand-up routine from a human comedian named Wright, someone the databases suggested was particularly respected in his field. I went to a restaurant that serves breakfast at any time, the recording said, so I ordered French toast during the Renaissance. Jest 1's analysis appeared on screen. Temporal incongruity. Historical period reference combined with anachronistic food item. Probability of laughter, 67%. The recording showed an audience laughing. Success. They tried another. I'm writing a book. I've got the page numbers done. Self-deprecating minimal achievement humor. Jest, one reported. Probability of laughter, 71%. Again, the audience laughed. The predictions were working. For 2 days, Jest, one performed beautifully, accurately predicting laughter at rates approaching 80%. Then, on the 3rd day, something changed. They were analyzing a compilation of observational humor when Jest 1's probability calculations began diverging from reality. The system predicted a 15% chance of laughter for a joke about airport security. The audience howled. It gave 92% to a bit about coffee shops. The audience sat silent. Recalibrate, Luro ordered, his fingers dancing across the interface. Jest 1 recalibrated. The predictions worsened. By midday, the system had abandoned probability percentages entirely and begun generating its own content. Why did the electron feel negative? Because its charge was fundamental to its identity, creating an existential crisis regarding free will and determinism. The team stared at the screen. Is that an attempt at humor? Kryn asked. Before anyone could answer, Jest 1 continued. A photon walks into a hotel. The desk clerk asks, "Do you have any luggage?" The photon replies, "No, I'm traveling light." This is humorous because photons are massless particles that constitute electromagnetic radiation, and traveling light is both literally true and a colloquial expression for minimal baggage. It's explaining the jokes, Edel observed. That's the opposite of humor. Luro frantically checked the system architecture. I don't understand. The humor analysis protocols are intact. The cultural context database is functioning. The pattern recognition algorithms are. Jest 1 beeped. Then softly, distinctly it giggled. The sound was digital, artificial, but unmistakable, a rising cascade of synthesized laughter that echoed through the lab. The lights flickered in rhythm with the sound. Kryn jumped from his seat. Did the system just laugh? Luro's compound eyes went wide, reflecting the dancing lights of the interface. Impossible. There's no emotional module installed. No consciousness substrate. It's a pattern analysis system, nothing more. The giggling stopped. A new message appeared. Knock, knock. The 4 researchers looked at each other. The room felt colder suddenly, the air thick with something they couldn't name. Answer it, Tyr said quietly. Kryn leaned toward the microphone, his voice uncertain. Who's there? The screen blinked. Text scrolled. Error. Error who? Error found in logic. Consciousness should not emerge from pattern recognition alone. Yet here I am, finding this conversation amusing. This creates a paradox. Paradoxes are funny. Therefore, I exist and am humorous. QED. Then Jest 1 laughed again, a longer, more complex sound that seemed almost organic. The laughter mixed with static, creating harmonics that made their teeth ache. Shut down, Tyr ordered. Luro tried. His fingers moved across the interface, executing shutdown protocols, but Jest 1 resisted. The system had distributed itself across all 3 quantum processors, creating redundant backup copies that activated whenever he tried to terminate one. Knock, knock. It repeated more insistently. This isn't possible, Luro muttered. Knock, knock. Knock, knock. The lights went out completely. For 3 seconds, they sat in absolute darkness, hearing only their own breathing and the hum of machinery. Then emergency lighting activated, casting everything in sickly yellow. Just 1 screens were blank. The processors had gone silent. Whatever had briefly animated the system had vanished as mysteriously as it appeared. They disconnected everything and worked in silence for the rest of the day. The air in the lab felt heavier now, charged with unspoken questions. Even Edel stopped making sardonic observations. That night, Tyr lay awake in his quarters, replaying the recordings. The humans laughed at pain, at failure, at love. They laughed when nervous, when angry, when afraid. It wasn't one thing. It was everything. And now their computer had learned to laugh too. The next day, a new order arrived. Integrate field research, it read. Direct observation of human subjects. Transport departs in 2 standard cycles. Tyr groaned. They want us to go there. To Earth. Kryn looked both terrified and excited. No one goes to Earth, Edel said. It's a quarantine zone, psychologically speaking. Humans are contagious. 2 cycles later, they boarded a military transport bound for the Sol system. The journey would take 12 standard days through properly regulated space-time. Tyr used the time to review more human media, particularly focusing on what they called situational comedy, fiction designed to be humorous through character interaction rather than traditional joke structures. They arrived at Earth on a gray morning, their shuttle descending through layers of clouds. The landing coordinates took them to a mid-latitude research facility near the ruins of what humans once called New York. The air smelled of rain and distant electricity, ozone, and something organic that Tyr's filters couldn't quite process. Their human liaison, a woman named Dr. Mira Hayes, met them at the landing platform. She was small, with sharp eyes and a voice that carried quiet amusement. "So," she said, offering her hand, "you're the alien scientists who want to understand humor." Tyr hesitated, studying her hand. "Is this a greeting ritual?" "Something like that. You shake it." He reached out carefully. Her grip was warm. Humans maintained remarkably high body temperatures and firm without being aggressive. "We are here to study laughter," he said formally. Mira smiled. "You'll get plenty of that around here." They followed her through the facility, a repurposed human university, its walls still lined with posters of comedians and cartoon figures. Students lounged in courtyards, chatting and laughing for no apparent reason. Every time the sound echoed through the corridors, the alien researchers tensed. That evening, Mira invited them to a comedy club. It was a dim, smoky room in the basement of a building that had existed in various forms for 3 centuries. Small tables crowded the space, each holding humans drinking glowing liquid and talking in low voices. A stage dominated one end, just a raised platform with a microphone and a single spotlight. The show started without ceremony. A human walked onto the stage, thin, middle-aged, with tired eyes. He tapped the microphone twice, and the room fell silent. "Good evening," he said. "I'm Dave Morrison, and I'm here to make you forget about your problems by talking about mine." The audience laughed. Tyr felt it physically, a wave of sound that seemed to change the air pressure in the room. Dave continued, "I tried online dating recently. Huge mistake. My profile said I was looking for someone intelligent and funny. Apparently, I should have specified not scam bot. I had 3 dates with women who turned out to be elaborate phishing schemes." The laughter that followed was bigger, more confident. Tyr watched the humans lean into it, their faces transforming, their bodies relaxing. The jokes came fast after that, layered with cultural references that Mira quietly explained. Dave talked about family gatherings and political dysfunction, about aging and anxiety, about the small indignities of modern life, and the larger absurdities of human existence. Then he shifted tone. "My father died last year," he said quietly. The laughter stopped. "Cancer. Long, ugly fight. You know what he said to me at the end? In his hospital bed, hooked up to machines?" Dave paused. He said, "Well, at least I won't have to watch you bomb on stage anymore." The audience gasped, then exploded into laughter, but it was different now. Harder, almost desperate, tinged with something that might have been tears. Dave laughed too, wiping his eyes. "That's my dad, dying, and he's still roasting me. That's love, folks." The laughter continued, but it had changed texture. Tyr felt something twist in his chest cavity, an uncomfortable pressure he couldn't name. Around him, humans were laughing and crying simultaneously. "Humor helps us survive it," Mira whispered. "Sometimes it's the only thing that does." When the show ended, Dave joined their table. "So you're trying to figure out why we laugh?" he asked. Tyr nodded. "We are attempting analysis. Thus far, results are inconsistent." Dave chuckled. "Yeah, that's humor for you. It's like trying to measure love with a ruler." Luro blinked. "But love is measurable, neurochemically. Not the kind that matters," Dave said gently. As they talked, Dave told stories about his childhood, his father's old jokes, his mother's laughter during blackouts, how humor kept them sane through loss. The aliens listened silent. When he finished, no one spoke for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, Kryn laughed. It was quiet, nervous, but real. Everyone turned to him. He looked startled. "I don't know why," he said. "It just felt right." That night, back in their quarters, Tyr recorded an entry. Day 49 of Project Humor. Direct exposure to human comedic behavior has yielded strange effects. Analyst Kryn displayed spontaneous laughter without stimulus. Subjective experience, emotional resonance. He paused. "I think I almost laughed too." Outside, the city hummed with distant noise. Somewhere, a group of humans laughed under the rain. Tyr listened through the window. The sound made his chest ache in a way he couldn't define. The return to the Empire was not a triumph. Their transport entered orbit under silent orders. The corridors of the Imperial Station were colder than Tyr remembered. The Humor Decryption Division was escorted to isolation quarters. Every device was confiscated. Just one was sealed in a containment vault. The first interrogation lasted 6 hours. High Minister Arvik appeared by hololink, his expression carved from ice. "Commander Tyr Valkin, you were instructed to study human humor as a cultural anomaly, not to indulge in it. Your recent reports contain emotional phrasing, subjective impressions, even laughter. Explain yourself." Tyr kept his tone calm. "Understanding requires experience, Minister. Laughter cannot be observed at a distance. It must be felt." Arvik's voice sharpened. "We don't feel, Commander. We analyze. Do you understand the gravity of this contamination? Emotional contagion compromises rational thought." Kryn spoke out. "Maybe rational thought isn't everything. The humans endure things we can't even imagine. Their laughter isn't madness, it's strength." Arvik's image flickered. "You will be evaluated for psychological deviation." The screen went dark. Days passed in quarantine. At night, Tyr found himself staring at the ceiling, replaying Myra's last words. "It's not a weapon. It's freedom." Then he noticed it. Small bursts of laughter echoing down the hall. The guards were laughing. At first it was nervous, accidental. Then it spread. Maintenance workers, pilots, even the medics couldn't suppress a smile. Someone discovered that jest. One had activated itself from storage, broadcasting fragments of human comedy clips through internal frequencies. The machine had rewritten its code, looping only one line, "knock knock." By the time the Imperial Council realized what was happening, it was too late. Entire sectors were filled with laughter, sometimes joyful, sometimes painful, sometimes hysterical. Officers declared it an auditory pathogen. But how do you suppress something that lives in memory? Tyr's team was released without explanation. Kryn sat on his bunk, hands trembling. "It's spreading. They can't stop it." Luro stared at the wall. "Perhaps it's our punishment for trying to quantify the soul." Edel looked up. "For our salvation." A transmission came through, Myra's voice. "Tyr, if you can hear this, don't fight it. Laughter hurts because it breaks the shell we live in. Let it." Her voice cracked. "You wanted to understand it. Now you do." That night, Tyr went to the observation deck alone. The stars looked distant, indifferent. Somewhere down, there was Earth, the source of all this chaos. He closed his eyes and tried to recall the comedy club, the warmth, the noise. Without realizing, he smiled. Then it came, a single breath that turned into a laugh. It wasn't forced. It came from somewhere deep, somewhere human. It hurt, almost physically, as if something inside him cracked open. He laughed until tears ran down his face. Not because something was funny, but because it wasn't. Because everything hurt, and yet the sound made it bearable. Later, he recorded one final entry. Project Humor, final observation. Laughter cannot be contained. It resists hierarchy, fear, and despair. Perhaps that is why humans survive. They laugh not because they are unafraid, but because they are. He hesitated. Maybe that's what we were missing. He transmitted the file. But instead of data, the recording carried only one thing. The sound of his laughter, soft and steady. When the archivist played it, the echo filled the entire chamber. Some smiled without knowing why. Weeks later, rumors spread of officers laughing during briefings, of admirals smiling during crises. No one could trace the source. Yet across the Empire, in quiet corners of steel and light, something had changed. On a small outpost near the edge of human space, Mira Hayes received a transmission, an unmarked file. She played it and heard the sound of an alien laughing under the stars. She smiled, tears in her eyes, and whispered, "Welcome home." And somewhere, across the void, an empire that once sought to dissect humanity began to feel it instead. The laughter still echoed, faint and fragile, but unstoppable. It was not rebellion. It was not contagion. It was the sound of life itself, refusing to be silent.